The giant alien ship appeared in Earth's sky without warning. It was bigger than any city, dark metal stretching across the horizon like a storm cloud that would never pass. People stopped walking on the streets below. They looked up and pointed. Some took pictures. Others ran. Admiral Krixvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the small blue planet. His 6 arms moved over the control panels with practiced ease. His metallic skin gleamed under the ship's lights. This was his job. He had done it many times before. Find a world, give them a choice, wait for them to surrender. The Zephyrian Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. They had conquered thousands of worlds. They had destroyed civilizations that refused to bow. They had never lost a war. Earth would be no different. Send the message, Krixvar told his communications officer. His voice was deep and cold, like metal scraping against stone. On Earth, President Alina Rodriguez was having lunch in her office when the screens went dark. Every television, every computer, every phone display showed the same thing. A massive alien face filled the screen. His eyes were yellow. His mouth was filled with sharp teeth. When he spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "People of Earth," the alien said, "I am Admiral Krixvar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your planet has been selected for integration into our domain. You have 30 of your solar cycles to surrender. Submit to Imperial rule, and your species will be allowed to live as workers in our empire. Refuse, and you will be destroyed completely." The message played 3 times, then the screens went back to normal. Nothing would ever be normal again. Alina stood up slowly. Her coffee cup fell from her hand and shattered on the floor. She had been president for 4 years. She had dealt with wars, natural disasters, and economic collapse. But nothing had prepared her for this. Her phone rang. It was General Susan Clark, head of Earth's Defense Forces. "Hey, did you see it?" Susan asked. "Everyone saw it," Alina said. "How long do we have? 30 days? Maybe less if they get impatient?" Susan's voice was calm, but Alina could hear the fear underneath. "I'm calling an emergency meeting. All world leaders, all military commanders. We need to talk." Alina looked out her window. The alien ship was still there, hanging in the sky like a sword waiting to fall. In the distance, she could see other ships appearing. Smaller ones, but still huge compared to anything humans had built. "How many ships do they have?" she asked. "Our satellites count at least 200 so far. More are coming through what looks like some kind of portal." Suzanne paused. "Alina, we need to be realistic here. Our entire space fleet is less than 200 ships. Most of them are cargo haulers and research vessels. We have maybe 50 real warships, and they have thousands at least, maybe tens of thousands." Alina closed her eyes. She thought about her daughter who was studying at college. She thought about the millions of people walking around outside, living their lives, not knowing that their world was about to end. "Call the meeting," she said. "We need to decide what we're going to do." 2 hours later, Alina sat in a conference room deep under the Swiss Alps. The emergency bunker had been built during the old Cold War, but it had been updated with the best technology Earth could build. Around the table sat the leaders of every major nation on Earth. Prime Minister Jack Harrison from the European Federation looked tired. He was an old man who had seen too many wars. "We need to think carefully," he said. "This is not about pride. This is about survival." Chancellor Liu Wei from the Asian Alliance disagreed. "If we surrender, we become slaves. Our children become slaves. Their children become slaves. Is that survival?" General Clark activated a holographic display in the SDO. Center of the table, it showed Earth surrounded by red dots. Each dot was an alien ship. "Here's what we know," she said. "The Zephyrians have technology that's hundreds of years ahead of ours. Their ships are faster, their weapons are stronger, their defenses are better. In a straight fight, we would lose in minutes." "Then we don't fight straight," said Captain Ryan Torres. He was Elena's military advisor, a pilot who had fought in the Mars Colony War. "We fight smart, we fight dirty. We fight like humans." "Against an empire that has conquered the galaxy?" Jack asked. "Be realistic, Ryan." "I am being realistic," Ryan said. They've conquered the galaxy by fighting other aliens. They've never fought humans before. They don't know how we think. They don't know how we fight. General Clark brought up another display. It showed human settlements throughout the solar system, Mars colonies, asteroid mining stations, research bases on the moons of Jupiter and Saturn. We have about 2 billion people off-world, she said. If Earth falls, they might survive. We could evacuate more people, spread them out, make it harder for the aliens to find everyone. Running and hiding, Liu Wei said. That's not a plan. That's giving up. Elena looked around the table. These people were responsible for 8 billion human lives. The weight of that responsibility felt like a mountain on her shoulders. What are our options? She asked. General Clark stood up. Option 1. We surrender. We become part of their empire. We live as slaves, but we live. Option 2. We fight and lose quickly. Most of humanity dies, but some might escape to the outer colonies. Option 3. We fight and somehow win. What are the chances of option 3? Elena asked. Honestly, less than 1%. Maybe less than that. The room was quiet. Elena could hear the air conditioning humming. She could hear someone's fingers tapping on the table. Outside, she knew people were living their lives, going to work, picking up their children from school, not knowing that their leaders were deciding the fate of their species. There's something else, Ryan said. I've been talking to our intelligence people. Zephyrians have been broadcasting their ultimatum to other species they've conquered. It's always the same message. Always the same timeline. Always the same result. Which is, Elena asked, everyone surrenders. Every single species in the galaxy has chosen to become slaves rather than fight. Liu Wei leaned forward. Every species. Every one. In 3,000 years, no one has ever said no to the Zephyrian Empire. Lena felt something strange in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize what it was. Anger. Not fear. Not despair. But pure human anger? So we would be the first, she said. The first to refuse, Ryan said. The first to fight back. The first to show the galaxy that the Zephyrians can be challenged. The first to die, Jack said quietly. Maybe, Elena said, but maybe not. Maybe we're the first because we're different. Maybe we're the first because we're human. She looked around the table again. These people had been chosen by their nations to lead. They had been elected, appointed, or promoted because they were supposed to make the hard decisions. We need to vote, she said. All in favor of surrender? Jack raised his hand. 2 others followed. 3 votes out of 12. All in favor of fighting? 9 hands went up. Elena's was the first. Then it's decided, she said. We fight. General Clark nodded. I'll start preparing our defenses. We don't have much time. What about our response to the aliens? Liu Wei asked. How do we tell them our decision? Elena looked at Ryan. You're our best pilot. You know space better than anyone. Can you get close enough to their flagship to deliver a message? Ryan smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who had found something worth dying for. I can get close enough, he said. What should I tell them? Lena thought about humanity, about their wars, their struggles, their refusal to give up, even when everything seemed hopeless. About children playing in parks while alien ships filled the sky above them. Tell them we choose war, she said. The meeting ended. The leaders went back to their countries to prepare for the impossible. Elena stood alone in the conference room, looking at the holographic display of Earth surrounded by enemy ships. In 30 days, the most powerful empire in the galaxy would learn what it meant to fight humans. They had no idea what they were about to face. Captain Ryan Torres sat in his fighter cockpit, watching the alien fleet through his canopy. The Phoenix was Earth's newest experimental ship. Built with stolen technology from a crashed alien probe found on Mars 3 years ago, it was fast, heavily armed, and completely untested in real combat. Phoenix, this is Control, came General Clark's voice through his headset. Are you ready to deliver our message? Ryan looked at the massive alien flagship ahead of him. It was 10 times bigger, than Earth's largest space station. Weapons covered its hull like metal thorns. You could see smaller ships moving around it like insects around a giant beast. "As ready as I'll ever be," he said. "Remember, get close enough to make sure they hear you, then get out fast. We need you alive for what comes next." Ryan pushed his throttle forward. The Phoenix shot toward the alien fleet like a bullet. Behind him, Earth grew smaller. Ahead of him, the enemy ships grew larger. Admiral Krixvar watched the small human ship approach on his main screen. His bridge crew stood at attention around him. They had done this many times before. The humans would deliver their surrender message, and then the real work could begin. "Sir," said his communications officer, "the human ship is requesting to speak with you directly." "Put them through," Krixvar said, expected to hear begging, pleading, or formal surrender terms. Every species said the same things when they realized they could not win. Ryan's face appeared on the alien bridge's main screen. He looked calm, almost relaxed. This surprised Krixvar. Most species sent their most frightened leaders to deliver surrender messages. "Admiral Krixvar," Ryan said, "I'm Captain Ryan Torres of the Earth Defense Force. I'm here to deliver our official response to your ultimatum." "Speak," Krixvar said. Ryan smiled. It was the same smile he had worn in the conference room, cold and determined. "We choose war." The alien bridge fell silent. Krixvar's yellow eyes widened. In 3,000 years, no species had ever given that response. "You choose what?" Krixvar asked. "War," Ryan repeated. "We will not surrender. We will not become your slaves. We will fight you with everything we have, for as long as we have breath in our bodies." Krixvar looked at his bridge crew. They looked as confused as he felt. This was not in any of their procedures. No one had ever prepared them for this response. "You cannot win," Krixvar said. "We have conquered thousands of worlds. We've destroyed civilizations far more advanced than yours. Surrender now, and some of your species will survive." "Maybe we can't win," Ryan said, "but we're going to try anyway. That's what makes us human." Before Krixvar could respond, Ryan cut the transmission. The Phoenix turned and accelerated away from the alien fleet, moving faster than any Zephyrian ship could follow. "Shall the First order the fleet to destroy that ship?" asked Krixvar's weapons officer. Krixvar stared at the screen where Ryan's face had been. He had never encountered defiance like this. It was not logical. It was not rational. It was not possible. "No," he said slowly. "Let them go. When we destroy their planet, I want them to watch. I want them to see what happens to species that refuse the Empire." Ryan landed the Phoenix on Luna Base, humanity's largest military installation on the moon. General Clark was waiting for him in the hangar bay. "How did they react?" she asked. "They were shocked," Ryan said. "I don't think anyone has ever told them no before." "Good. That gives us an advantage. They won't expect us to fight back hard." Around them, the base buzzed with activity. Soldiers ran between buildings. Ships launched and landed constantly. Everyone was preparing for war. "What's our situation?" Ryan asked. General Clark led him to the command center. The main screen showed the solar system with red and blue dots. Red for alien ships, blue for human ones. There were a lot more red dots. "They have about 50,000 ships total," Clark said. "We have 187 combat vessels. Most of those are patrol boats and fighters." 50,000, Ryan said. "That's worse than I thought. It gets worse. Their ships are bigger, faster, and more heavily armed than ours. Each of their destroyers could probably take on 10 of our best warships." Ryan looked at the screen. The numbers were impossible. No military leader in history had ever faced odds like this. "But," Clark continued, "we have some advantages." "Like what?" "First, this is our home. We know every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space junk in this system. Second, we're desperate. Desperate people fight harder than confident ones. Third, we're unpredictable. Unpredictable. Think about it. Every species they've conquered has fought the same way. Big fleets, formal battles, predictable tactics. We're going to fight like humans." The alien attack began 6 hours later. Krixvar sent his fleet toward Earth in a standard formation. 3 waves of ships, each one bigger than the last. It was a tactic that had worked on every world the Empire had conquered, but humans had never read. The standard tactical manual. The first wave of alien ships approached Earth's moon. They expected to find human defenses waiting for them. Instead, they found empty space. The human fleet had vanished. "Where are they?" Krixvar demanded. "Sir, our sensors show no human ships in the immediate area," his tactical officer reported. "Cannot have fled already?" "Scan the entire system." Before the officer could respond, explosions erupted throughout the alien formation. Human ships appeared from behind asteroids, from inside debris fields, from places no military commander would think to look. Commander Lisa Brown led the attack from her flagship, the Defiant. She had hidden her squadron inside a cloud of ice and rock left over from a comet impact. When the aliens passed by, she struck. "All ships, fire at will," she ordered. "Hit them hard and fast, then disappear." The human ships opened fire with everything they had: missiles, lasers, plasma cannons, and new weapons built from reverse-engineered alien technology. The surprised Zephyrians took heavy damage before they could respond. Then the humans vanished again, disappearing into the maze of asteroids and debris that filled the outer solar system. "Report," Krixvar demanded. "We lost 12 ships in the first attack," his tactical officer said. "The humans appeared from nowhere, attacked, and disappeared. Find them." "Sir, they're using the asteroid belt as cover. Our sensors can't track them effectively in all that debris." Krixvar had never encountered tactics like this. The humans were not fighting like a proper military. They were fighting like pirates, like raiders, like nothing he had ever seen. "Send the second wave," he ordered. "Full sensor sweep of the asteroid belt. Destroy everything that moves." The second wave of alien ships spread out, moving slowly through the asteroid field. They fired at anything that looked suspicious. Rocks exploded into dust. Old mining equipment was vaporized. But the humans were not there. They were attacking the third wave, Captain. Torres led 50 fighters in a suicidal charge against the alien rearguard. The fighters were tiny compared to the enemy ships, but they were fast and almost impossible to hit. "Remember," Torres said over the radio, "we're not trying to destroy them. We're trying to hurt them, make them angry, make them make mistakes." The human fighters swarmed around the alien ships like angry bees. They fired everything they had, then retreated before the aliens could respond effectively. It was not a battle in any traditional sense. It was harassment, annoyance. A new kind of warfare. Dr. Kevin Murphy watched the battle from his laboratory on Mars. He was not a soldier, but he understood what was happening. The humans were not trying to win through superior force. They were trying to win by being impossible to predict. "Brilliant," he said to his assistant. "They're using our weakness as a strength." "How do you mean?" "We're outnumbered, outgunned, and outmatched. In a normal battle, we would lose in minutes. So we're not fighting a normal battle. We're fighting a human battle." The alien losses were small compared to their total numbers. They had lost maybe 100 ships out of 50,000. But they were confused, frustrated, and angry. They had never fought an enemy like this. Krixvar paced his bridge. His perfect battle plan was falling apart. The humans were not fighting according to any rules he understood. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Other species are monitoring our transmissions. They're watching this battle." "Good. Let them see what happens to those who defy the Empire." "That's not what they're seeing. They're seeing the Empire struggling against a primitive species. They're seeing us take casualties." Krixvar stopped pacing. He had not considered this possibility. The Empire ruled through fear and reputation. If other species saw the Zephyrians as vulnerable, it could cause problems throughout the galaxy. "How long to reach Earth?" he asked. "At current speed, 18 hours. Increase speed." "I want this finished quickly." But the humans were not finished. As the alien fleet approached Earth, they found surprises waiting for them. Automated defense platforms hidden in Earth's rings. Missile pods attached to communication satellites. Weapons built into the space elevators that connected Earth to its orbital stations. The battle for Earth began at dawn on the 7th day of the war. The alien fleet filled the sky above the planet like a dark cloud, but the humans were ready. General Clark coordinated the defense from her command bunker. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier was committed to the battle. There was no retreat, no surrender, no backup plan. The Planet Killer Nexus was the most feared weapon in the galaxy. It was a ship the size of a small moon, built for one purpose: to destroy entire worlds. When it appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system, every human who saw it felt their heart stop. Admiral Krixvar stood on the bridge of the massive vessel, watching Earth through the main viewport. The little blue planet looked so peaceful, so small. Soon it would be nothing but floating rocks and dust. "Begin charging the primary weapon," he ordered. "I want every species in the galaxy to see this broadcast. Let them know what happens to those who defy the Empire." The weapon would take 6 hours to charge, 6 hours to build up enough power to crack a planet in half. Krixvar planned to use every minute of those 6 hours to show the galaxy the price of rebellion. But when the Zephyrians arrived at Earth, they found something impossible. The planet was empty. No ships in orbit. No signals from the surface. No signs of life anywhere. "Where are they?" Krixvar demanded. "Sir, our scans show no human activity on the planet," his science officer reported. "The cities appear abandoned. The military bases are empty. It's like they all just vanished." Krixvar felt a chill run down his spine. In 3,000 years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. Planets didn't just empty themselves. Populations didn't just disappear. Span the search. Check every moon, every asteroid, every piece of debris in this system. What Krixvar didn't know was that the humans had spent the last 3 weeks preparing for this moment. Colonel Matt Davis had coordinated the largest evacuation in human history. 8 billion people had been moved to hidden bases throughout the solar system. Underground cities on Mars, hollowed-out asteroids in the outer rim, secret facilities built inside the gas giant moons. It was impossible. It was insane. It was completely human. Dr. Kevin Murphy sat in his laboratory deep inside the asteroid series, watching the alien ship through a telescope. Around him, 1,000,000. Other humans lived and worked in the carved-out tunnels and chambers. They had turned the asteroid into a city, complete with farms, factories, and schools. "Are you ready?" asked his assistant, Patricia Wright. Kevin looked at the device they had built together. It looked like a simple radio transmitter, but it was much more than that. It was humanity's secret weapon, built from technology stolen from captured alien equipment. "As ready as we'll ever be," he said. Patricia was the best engineer he had ever worked with. She had figured out how the alien neural networks functioned, how their technology connected every Zephyrian in the galaxy into one vast communication system. "The virus is loaded," she said. "Once we transmit, it will spread through their entire network within minutes, and you're sure it will work?" "No," Patricia said honestly, "but it's the only chance we have." The virus was not biological. It was informational. A piece of code designed to disrupt the rigid thinking patterns that held the Zephyrian Empire together. Kevin had studied captured alien prisoners for weeks. Learning how their minds worked, the Zephyrians were not individuals the way humans were. They were part of a collective consciousness, connected through neural implants that had been installed at birth. This made them incredibly efficient at working together, but it also made them vulnerable. "Signal from General Clark," Patricia announced. "She's ready to begin the operation." Kevin nodded. Around the solar system, human forces were moving into position. Not to fight the planet killer directly, but to carry out the most desperate plan in military history. Captain Torres floated in space, his fighter powered down to avoid detection. Around him, 100 other human pilots waited in the darkness. They had been there for 2 days, drifting like debris, waiting for this moment. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Control," came General Clark's voice. "The planet killer is beginning its charging sequence. You are go for Phase 1. Torres powered up his fighter and checked his weapons. He wasn't carrying missiles or lasers. Instead, his ship was loaded with a single device, a quantum tunneling projector built by Patricia Wright's team. All fighters remember the plan, he said. We don't need to destroy the planet killer. We just need to get inside it. The quantum tunneling technology had been reverse engineered from alien equipment. It allowed matter to pass through solid barriers by shifting it into a parallel dimension for a few seconds. The technology was unstable, dangerous, and completely untested on this scale. It was perfect for humans. Torres activated the tunneling device and flew straight at the planet killer's hull. His fighter shimmered and passed through the solid metal, as if it wasn't there. He found himself inside the massive ship, flying through corridors the size of city streets. "I'm in," he reported, beginning Phase 2. Phase 2 was simple in concept, impossible in execution. Torres and his squadron had to plant signal amplifiers throughout the planet killer's communication systems. The amplifiers would boost Dr. Murphy's virus transmission, ensuring it reached every Zephyrian in the galaxy. But first, they had to survive inside the most heavily defended ship in the galaxy. Alarms began blaring throughout the planet killer. Krixvar couldn't believe what his tactical officer was telling him. "Sir, we have enemy fighters inside the ship. They somehow passed through our hull without damaging it. That's impossible." "Sir, but they're here. Security teams are responding." Krixvar looked at his tactical display. Red dots representing human fighters were moving through his ship like ghosts. They were small, fast, and using technology he didn't understand. How many? 100 confirmed? Maybe more. Krixvar felt something he had never experienced before: helplessness. His ship was the most powerful weapon in the galaxy, but he couldn't use it against enemies inside his own hull. Torres flew through the planet killer's corridors, dodging laser fire from security systems. His fighter was barely larger than the hallways, but Patricia had designed it for exactly this kind of mission. "Amplifier 1 is planted," reported his wingman Lisa Brown. "Moving to target 2. Copy that. Remember, we only have 20 minutes. Before they figure out how to stop us." The human fighters split up, each heading for a different part of the ship. They planted amplifiers in communication nodes, computer cores, and neural interface stations. Each device was small, nearly invisible, and designed to integrate with alien technology. Dr. Murphy watched his countdown timer. 15 minutes until the amplifiers were in position. 15 minutes until humanity's last desperate gamble. "Kevin," Patricia said, "we're getting reports from across the galaxy. The Cathari have begun open rebellion. The Vrex are attacking Imperial bases. Other species are rising up because of us, because of what we've shown them. For the first time in 3,000 years, someone is fighting back and winning." Kevin looked at the virus program on his computer screen. It was elegant, simple, and potentially devastating. It would spread through the Zephyrian network like wildfire, disrupting their ability to think and act as a collective. 10 minutes, he said. On the planet killer, Torres had planted his amplifier and was heading for the exit. Well, the aliens had figured out how to track the quantum tunneling signatures. Energy barriers began appearing in the corridors, blocking his path. "Phoenix Leader, this is Control. You need to get out of there now." "Working on it," Torres replied, firing at the barrier with his ship's weapons. The energy field flickered, but held around the ship. Other human fighters were trapped in the same way. The Zephyrians were learning, adapting, closing off escape routes. "All fighters, this is Phoenix Leader. If you can't get out, make sure your amplifiers are activated. The mission is more important than any of us." Torres heard acknowledgments from his squadron. These were the best pilots humanity had, and they all knew this was a one-way mission. 5 minutes, Dr. Murphy announced. Krixvar watched the human fighters on his tactical display. They were trapped now, unable to escape through the barriers his crew had erected. But they weren't trying to escape. They were activating devices throughout his ship. "What are those devices?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir. They appear to be some kind of transmitter." A terrible understanding began to dawn on Krixvar. The humans weren't trying to destroy his ship. They were trying to use it. But for what? 2 minutes, Dr. Murphy said. His finger hovered over the transmission button. Around him, the hidden human bases throughout the solar system waited in silence. 1 minute, Torres looked at his fighter's display. The amplifier was active. The mission was complete. Now all he could do was wait and hope that humanity's impossible plan would work. 30 seconds. Dr. Murphy thought about Earth, empty, and waiting for destruction. He thought about the 8 billion humans hidden throughout the solar system. He thought about the species across the galaxy who had lived in slavery for 3,000 years. 10 seconds. Krixvar suddenly understood what the humans were planning. Cut all communication networks, he ordered. Shut down everything. Now. It was too late. Transmitting? Dr. Murphy said. Press the button. The virus spread through the Zephyrian network faster than thought itself. It jumped from the planet killer to every ship in the fleet, then to every Zephyrian base in the galaxy. Within minutes, it had reached every member of the species. The effect was immediate and devastating. The rigid hierarchy that held the Empire together began to collapse. The collapse of the Zephyrian Empire happened faster than anyone had expected. Within 3 days of the virus transmission, reports came in from across the galaxy. Imperial fleets had stopped fighting. Governors were abandoning their posts. Great machine that had ruled for 3,000 years was falling apart. Admiral. Krixvar sat alone in his command chamber aboard the planet killer. For the first time in his life, the constant voices in his head were silent. Alone, the neural network that had connected him to every other Zephyrian was gone. He was alone with his own thoughts, and it terrified him. Sir, his communications officer entered the chamber. The officer's voice was different now, uncertain, almost hesitant. We are receiving surrender requests from 17 star systems. The local populations are demanding that we leave their worlds. Krixvar looked at the officer. He noticed things he had never seen before. The way the younger Zephyrian's hands shook slightly, the fear in his yellow eyes, the way he stood, no longer at perfect military attention. Surrender requests? Krixvar asked. Yes, sir. The Cathari have taken back their homeworld. The Vrex have reclaimed their mining colonies. Udalari have driven our forces off their moon bases. They are all demanding that we withdraw from their territory. Krixvar felt something strange in his chest. It took him a moment to recognize what it was. Doubt. He had never doubted the Empire before. He had never questioned his orders or wondered if conquest was right. What about our other fleets? He asked. Most have stopped responding to commands. Some are retreating to Zephyrian space. Others are just ... floating. Their crews don't know what to do. President Elena Rodriguez stood in the control room of the hidden base on Mars, watching the reports come in. The impossible had happened. Humanity had not just survived, they had won. The Cathari are asking to speak with you, General. Clark said they want to thank us for what we did. The Cathari were enslaved for 200 years, Elena said. They have nothing to thank us for. They freed themselves. Maybe, but they say we showed them it was possible? Elena looked at the main screen, which showed the solar system. The alien ships were still there, but they were no longer threatening. Many were simply drifting, their crews too confused to function. What about the planet killer? She asked. Still powered down. Captain Torres is still inside, but he says the crew is cooperating. They seem more interested in talking than fighting. Elena made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. Open a channel to Admiral Krixvar. I want to speak with him. The screen flickered, and the alien admiral's face appeared. Elena had seen him before in the first ultimatum, but he looked different now. Less confident, more ... human. Admiral, Krixvar, Elena said. I am President Elena Rodriguez of Earth. I believe we need to talk. Krixvar stared at the human leader. She was smaller than he had expected, with gray hair and kind eyes. She looked nothing like the warrior he had imagined. You destroyed my empire, he said. There was no anger in his voice, only confusion. No, Elena said. We freed your people. There's a difference. Freed them from what? Or from being forced to think the same thoughts, follow the same orders, live the same lives? Your people are individuals now. They can make their own choices. Krixvar was quiet for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew worked at their stations, but they moved differently now. They paused, they thought, they sometimes disagreed with each other. I don't understand, he said finally. How can a civilization function if everyone thinks differently? Elena smiled. Come to Earth. Let me show you. 2 weeks later, a small shuttle landed at the spaceport outside New Geneva. Admiral Krixvar stepped out, flanked by human security guards. It was the first time Zephyrian had set foot on Earth as anything other than a conqueror. The crowds that gathered to see him were not angry. They were curious. Sheldon pointed at his metallic skin and asked their parents questions. Adults stared but did not threaten. This confused Krixvar more than anything else. Why are they not afraid? He asked Alina as they walked toward the government building. Because you're not here to hurt them, she said. You're here to learn. But I was going to destroy their world. That was before. This is now. People can change, Admiral. Even Zephyrians. Alina took him on a tour of the city. She showed him schools where children learned to think for themselves. She showed him markets where people argued about prices and laughed about their disagreements. She showed him art galleries where each painting was different, unique, created by an individual mind. This is chaos, Krixvar said, watching a group of teenagers playing music in the park. How does anything get done? It gets done because people choose to do it, Alina said. Not because they're forced to. That evening, they sat in Elena's office, talking about the future. Outside the window, the lights of the city twinkled like stars. What happens now? Krixvar asked. My people are scattered across the galaxy. They don't know how to live without the collective network. They'll learn, Alina said. We'll help them. Why would you help us? We tried to destroy you. Alina looked at him carefully, because that's what people do. They help each other.
Actor.
Kevin Murphy arrived at the meeting carrying a small device. It looked like a simple medical scanner, but it was much more important than that. Admiral, he said, we've been studying your neural implants. I think we can remove them safely. Krixvar touched the side of his head, where the implant had been installed when he was born. Remove them? But they are part of us. They were. Put there to control you, Kevin said. Make you part of the collective. But now that the collective is gone, the implants are just causing you pain. It was true. Krixvar's head hurt constantly now. The implant kept trying to connect to a network that no longer existed. Will it hurt? He asked. A little, Kevin said honestly. But afterward, you'll be truly free. The operation took 3 hours. When Krixvar woke up, the first thing he noticed was the silence. Not the painful silence of a broken connection, but the peaceful silence of his own mind. How do you feel? Lena asked. Krixvar sat up slowly. He felt ... different. Lighter. For the first time in his life, his thoughts were completely his own. I feel ... He paused, searching for the right word. I feel like myself. Word of the operation spread quickly through the galaxy. Zephyrians. From across the Empire came to human hospitals to have their implants removed. Dr. Murphy and his team worked around the clock, performing thousands of surgeries. But the change was not just medical. It was cultural. Captain Torres, now promoted to Admiral, led the first joint fleet in galactic history. Human ships flew alongside Cathari vessels, Vrex fighters, and even reformed Zephyrian cruisers. They were not conquering worlds, but protecting them. This is Admiral Torres of the Galactic Defense Coalition, he said into his communicator. We are responding to your distress call. The planet below was being attacked by pirates, former Imperial forces who had refused to accept the new order. They were trying to rebuild the old empire through force and fear. The Coalition fleet. This is the surface, came the reply. Thank you for coming. We didn't think anyone would help us. That's what we're here for, Torres said. To help. The battle was brief. Pirates were outnumbered and outgunned by the Coalition forces. But more importantly, they were fighting. For the wrong reasons. They were fighting to enslave, while the Coalition was fighting to free. After the battle, Torres received a message from the planet's government. They wanted to join the Coalition to help protect other worlds from the chaos that followed the Empire's collapse. Welcome to the Coalition, Torres said. Together we're stronger. General Clark stood in the new Coalition headquarters on Mars, looking at a map of the galaxy. Green lights showed Coalition members, yellow showed neutral worlds. Red showed areas still controlled by Imperial remnants. We're making progress, said Commander Lisa Brown, who now served as Coalition Intelligence Chief. 57 worlds have joined us in the past month. The Zephyrian Provisional Government has agreed to pay war reparations to the species they enslaved. What about the holdout fleets? Clark asked. Most are running out of supplies. Without the Imperial infrastructure to support them, they can't maintain their ships or weapons. We expect most to surrender within the year. Clark nodded. The transition from Empire to Coalition was not easy, but it was happening. Species that had been enemies for millennia were learning to work together. There's something else, Lisa. Said we're getting reports of new technologies being developed? Zephyrian scientists working with human engineers?
Yes.
Kethari artists collaborating with Vrex musicians? When different species work together, they create things none of them could make alone. Alina Rodriguez, now serving as the Coalition's first president, received daily reports from across the galaxy. The news was not always good. Some worlds were struggling with the transition to freedom. Others were fighting civil wars as different groups tried to seize power. But there was hope. Real, genuine hope for the first time in 3,000 years. Madam President, her aide said, Admiral Krixvar is here to see you. Krixvar entered the office, but he looked completely different from the imposing figure who had once threatened Earth. 5 years after the war ended, the galaxy looked completely different. Where once there had been a single empire ruling through fear, now there were hundreds of independent worlds working together by choice. The Galactic Defense Coalition had grown from a desperate alliance into something unprecedented in galactic history. Admiral Ryan Torres stood on the bridge of the Liberty, formerly the Planet Killer Nexus. The massive ship had been converted from a weapon of destruction into a symbol of hope. Instead of planet-cracking weapons, it now carried medical supplies, food, and relief workers, 2 worlds still recovering from Imperial rule. Admiral, his communications officer, called out, "We're receiving a priority message from the Outer Rim. The Dollary system is under attack." Torres frowned. The Dollary were a peaceful species who had joined the Coalition 2 years ago. They had no enemies that he knew of. "What kind of attack?" he asked. "Unknown ships, sir." They appeared without warning and began destroying orbital stations. The Dollarier are requesting immediate assistance. Torres looked at his crew. They were a mix of species now: humans, reformed, Zephyrians, Kethari, Vrex, and others. Working together had become so natural that he sometimes forgot how impossible it had seemed just a few years ago. "Set course for the Dollari system. Maximum speed," he ordered. "And contact the Coalition fleet. You may need backup." The Liberty jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying its crew toward another crisis. But Torres was no longer the desperate fighter he had been during the war. He was a protector now, defending not just humanity, but all free species. Dr. Kevin Murphy sat in his laboratory on the Coalition research station, studying the latest reports from across the galaxy. The station was built inside a modified asteroid, much like the hidden bases where humans had waited during the war. But now, it was a center of learning, not hiding. Kevin, his assistant Patricia Wright, called from across the room, "You need to see this." Patricia was now the Coalition's chief engineer, responsible for developing new technologies that combined the best ideas from different species. Her latest project was ambitious even by her standards. "What is it?" Kevin asked, walking over to her workstation. "Remember the quantum tunneling technology we used to get inside the Planet Killer? I've been working on improving it." She activated a holographic display that showed a complex diagram. "If we can stabilize the quantum field, we can create permanent tunnels through space. Ships could travel from one end of the galaxy to the other in minutes instead of months." Kevin stared at the display. "That's impossible." "So was defeating the Zephyrian Empire," Patricia said with a smile. "But we did that too." On Earth, President Alina Rodriguez walked through the gardens of the New Geneva Peace Park. The park had been built on the site where the Coalition Treaty was signed, and it contained plants and trees from every member world. It was a living symbol of what different species could create together. "Madam President," her aide said, approaching with a tablet in hand, "the Kethari delegation has arrived for the annual Coalition meeting." Alina nodded. The meetings had become the most important events in galactic politics. Representatives from hundreds of worlds came together to discuss problems, share discoveries, and plan for the future. "How many worlds are attending this year?" she asked. 437, the aide replied. "That's 60 more than last year," Alina smiled. When the coalition had first been formed, only 12 worlds had joined. Most of the galaxy was part of the alliance. "Any word from the Outer Rim?" she asked. "Admiral Torres is handling the situation. Attacking ships appear to be from the Hegemony." Elena's smile faded. The Hegemony was a group of former Imperial officers who had refused to accept the new order. They had retreated to the edge of galactic space, where they tried to rebuild the old empire through force and terror. "How many ships do they have?" she asked. "Intelligence estimates about 1,000 vessels, but most are old and poorly maintained. They're not the threat the empire was." Alina hoped that was true.
Ow.
The coalition had grown strong, but it had also grown comfortable. Peace was wonderful, but it could make people forget how to fight when they needed to. The attack on the Dolari system was more serious than anyone had expected. When the Liberty arrived, Torres found 3 hegemony fleets surrounding the planet. They were not just attacking military targets, they were targeting civilian areas, trying to spread fear. "This is Admiral Torres of the Galactic Defense Coalition," he broadcast to the attacking ships. "You're attacking a protected world. Withdraw immediately, or face the consequences." The response came from the Hegemony flagship, a massive vessel. That looked like it had been cobbled together from parts of different ships. "This is Marshal Vexstar of the True Empire," came the reply.
Ow.
"We do not recognize your authority. These worlds belong to the Empire, and we will reclaim them." Torres recognized the name. Vexstar had been one of Krixvar's subordinates during the war. Unlike his former commander, Vexstar had refused to accept defeat. "The Empire is dead," Torres said.
Ow.
"Your people are free now. You don't have to fight anymore." "Freedom is chaos," Vexstar replied. "Order is strength. We will restore the proper way of things." The battle began immediately. The Hegemony ships were outnumbered, but they fought with the desperate fury of those who had nothing left to lose. Torres found himself fighting not just for the Dolari, but for everything the coalition had built. "All ships focus fire on their command vessel," he ordered. "If we can disable their leadership, the rest may surrender." The battle raged for hours. The ships on both sides were destroyed, but the coalition forces had advantages the Hegemony lacked. They worked together seamlessly, combining tactics from different species. Human unpredictability, Cathari precision, Vrex teamwork, and even reformed Zephyrian coordination. Finally, the Hegemony flagship began to break apart. Torres watched as escape pods launched from the dying vessel. He gave the order to rescue the survivors. Even though they had been trying to kill him moments before, Marshal Vexstar was brought to the Liberty's medical bay. He was badly injured, but alive. When he woke up, he found himself face to face with Torres. "Why did you save me?" he asked. "Because that's what we do," Torres said. "We don't abandon people, even our enemies." Vexstar stared at him. "Should have let me die with honor." "There's no honor in dying for a lost cause," Torres said. "But there's plenty of honor in living for a good one." General Susan Clark stood in the Coalition war room, reviewing reports from across the galaxy. The attack on the Dolari system had been the largest hegemony assault in 2 years, but it had failed. More importantly, it had shown that the coalition was strong enough to protect its members. "The hegemony is finished," reported Commander Lisa Brown. "After the defeat at Dolare, their remaining fleets are surrendering or deserting. Most of their soldiers are asking for asylum in coalition space." "What about their leadership?" Clark asked. "Marshal Vexstar is in custody. He's agreed to testify about hegemony war crimes in exchange for a reduced sentence. The other commanders are either dead or in hiding." Clark nodded. The last remnants of the old empire were finally being eliminated. But she knew that the coalition's real test was not military. It was whether they could maintain their unity in peacetime. "Any word from the research station?" she asked. "Dr. Murphy and Patricia Wright have made a breakthrough. They think they can create a permanent communication network that will connect every coalition world instantly." Clark smiled. The quantum tunneling technology that had once been used to sneak into enemy ships was now being used to unite the Galaxy, 6 months later, the first quantum tunnel was activated. Resident Alina Rodriguez stood in the control room on Mars, watching as the massive device powered up. The tunnel would connect Earth to the Cathari homeworld, 20,000 light years away. Beginning activation sequence, announced the chief engineer. Tunnel formation in 30 seconds. Alina watched the main screen as space itself began to bend and twist. Reality folded in on itself, creating a passage through dimensions that normal physics said shouldn't exist. Tunnel stable, the engineer reported. We have a clear path to Cathari Prime. Alina smiled as the first coalition ship entered the tunnel. The journey that would have taken months now took seconds. The ship emerged in Cathari space, its crew safe and unharmed. Open a channel to Cathari Prime, Alina said. The screen showed the face of Prime Minister Kalara, the Cathari leader. She looked amazed and delighted. Alina, she said, we can see your ship in our space. The impossible has become possible once again. This is just the beginning, Alina said. We'll have tunnels connecting every coalition world within a year. The galaxy is going to become a much smaller place. Admiral Torres, now serving as the coalition's chief explorer, took the Liberty through the new tunnel network on its maiden voyage. The ship that had once been designed to destroy worlds now carried diplomats and scientists to the furthest reaches of the galaxy. Admiral, his science officer called out, we're receiving a signal from an unknown source. It's coming from beyond. The Galactic Rim. Torres frowned. There was supposed to be nothing beyond the galaxy, except empty space and distant stars. What kind of signal, he asked. It appears to be a distress call. The language is unknown, but the mathematical pattern suggests intelligence.